And begin. Happy Tuesday to you on Breakfast Club PT. That's Tony. That's Frozen Dave, and I'm Jimmy. Not necessarily from Thawed Out. He's frozen. Today we're going to get into how not to network on LinkedIn. Are we actually going to talk about the Hawk Tuah girl? I mean, maybe we will. And also some different ideas that clinicians can use in terms of maybe marketing a product, or how could we'll call it this, how they can yes and themselves to pieces of equipment in the world. Tony, how you doing, man?
I'm doing amazing. So I love your new background. What's going on?
I am on the road. I am in the great Keystone state of Pennsylvania today. I'm working with an organization called Vestibular First, and they are based in Pennsylvania. I am not based in Pennsylvania, but for the first week, I'm sort of neck deep in vestibular stuff, quite literally neck deep. This is a Notoconia, in case you're wondering. This is a nice little fidget toy that they gave me. And they saw me coming from a mile away. I've been fidgeting with this for the last 24 hours. So it's a nice little like paperweight, but it's a real, like, from an MRI. This is what these are in your head. You got rocks in your head, Tony. That's what these are.
So, I'm a Penn State grad myself, undergrad, Nittany Lions. Yeah. I spent, I don't know how long, not long enough at University Park. So I love Pennsylvania.
So yeah, we're near Philly, Happy Valley. That's like in the dead center of the state though, right?
Yeah. Well, I started at Abington-Ogons, just north of Philly. I lived over the bridge in Pennsylvania, Cherry Hill. I think I did a semester there and then transferred to University Park. So
cool. All right, well, let's start with this. I think I was sending you screenshots, and Dave, who's trying to join back up now. I was sending you screenshots while this sort of interaction was going on. And I'm happy to share my screen to show everything that was going on, except the problem is, I guess this person who I had an interaction with, that I'm going to show you how not to network on LinkedIn, decided to delete everything. So I guess that's a feature. If like you say something bad on LinkedIn, you can actually just go and delete it, and these things will not show up anymore. So this guy, his name was hang on, because I did take some screenshots of this guy. His name was Chris McCallum, and essentially he slid into my DMs on Chris Kellert, Cellert. Now, for background, I've never interacted with this guy before, never heard of this person. I have no idea. I'm not connected with Chris Kellert in any way. And he slides into my DMs, which is, we have not crossed into bad territory yet. Sending someone a direct message is fine. That's what the program is for, right? He does it on the Friday of July 4th weekend, which I'm like, all right, aggressive, but we got other things going on. But I happen to be sitting by the pool, so hey, maybe it's a good strategy. And he immediately, the first message was, we are putting on an online conference. I need your name came up as someone who we want to speak on how to network online. The irony is thick here, because the moral, by the end of this conversation, you're going to realize he needs someone to teach him how to network online, because this ain't it, Chris. So he immediately says his pitch is, hey, I need someone to teach a course. It's an hour-long presentation. I say, is there hi, nice to see you. Who are you? Background, I see by your credentials you're a PT, but is there a website for this event? And the moral of this lesson, or the anti-lesson, is super forward and aggressive. So he immediately goes to I want to get on the phone. I can't find your phone number on your website. Now, keep in mind, I share my phone number a lot, but not on my website. I want random people who this person is until I understand who you are. Give me some context here, Chris. So now he's sort of berating me. He's like, oh, Mr. Don't like to talk on the phone guy. And now I'm just like, at this point, it's over, but I'm sitting by my pool, and now you're a source of entertainment while I sip my vodka soda on July 4th weekend. And now he's explaining to me why this is bad business. So then I'm now going to give him a very free lesson. And I say in this LinkedIn interaction, this will be on our live stream on Tuesday. Feel free to tune in, and you have an open invitation. I'll send you the link so you can be a guest to explain yourself or defend yourself. He explained that he was doing an online conference. It was happening in a month or two. It was $350 a ticket, to which what would Tony's next question be? What cut? Okay, great. Since I'm the Rolling Stones here, I'm the content. What cut am I getting? And he's like, that's not how this works. And I said, well, my friend, that is exactly how I work. So I don't know if we're gonna. So the conversation essentially, and I've seen these before, but this was a really recent one. Really berating, essentially trying to push me into a corner, like this opportunity is going to go away unless you take it right now. Again, the door was already closed. The guy was already a jerk, and this was not happening. And he proceeded to explain to me why this is bad business, and then hammered. And then he must have done something on LinkedIn, because now, as you can see, everything that's on the screen is like, this message may contain unwanted or harmful content. So he deleted everything.
Wow.
So I'm not one of your presenters. This was me responding to. He's like, I need your phone number. And I'm like,
right.
My phone number. He's like, I talk to every one of my presenters before to make sure we're on the same page. And I said, Chris, I want to be very, very clear. I am not one of your presenters. I'm a guy you messaged on LinkedIn. I don't work for you. So I figured we'd make this full circle, and I'd explain to people, since Chris asked me to present on how to network online, I use this as an example of, this is an example of how not to network online. Rule number 1, don't be a dick. Rule number 2, see rule number 1. Rule number 3, maybe build a relationship first before you go pitching someone something. So, Chris, thanks so much for the fuel for today's live stream. Again, he said I believe at one point he mentioned you can't mention my name, so that's Chris Gellert, Gellert. So thanks, Chris. Feel free to drop me an email if you disagree with what I'm saying right now. I would love to hear your side of the story if I've somehow distorted it. But have you had interactions like this online? You must have. People pitch. It's normal commonplace now. People pitch.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's shockingly a low number, and from my experience, so I can recall one. I had shared a post. Now, this was before I got onto LinkedIn. This was on Facebook. I had said something in regards to physical therapist assistants. Honestly, doing more work than many physical therapists. And I was saying how, why aren't physical therapist assistants compensated higher than physical therapists? Well, obviously that's going to strike a chord with a lot of physical therapists.
Sure.
So somebody private messaged me, some rude comments about it. We engaged a little bit. I mean, it doesn't bother me. That's what I expect. Like, somebody's going to say something. But then what happened, it got kind of weird. It turned into, I did screenshot what they said because I just had a weird feeling about it.
Yeah.
One of the big Facebook PT groups, one of the admin people from that said, hey, this person is saying you did this, which I didn't do. So I showed him the screenshots. I never showed anybody else the screenshots. And I think he kicked that person out of the group. Anyway, long story short, for as many engagements as I have, either direct engagements, people messaging me, email me, call, trying to call me, people that view my content across all of it. Like, I do 5 million, 6 million views on YouTube a year, lots of stuff on Facebook, now on LinkedIn, a shockingly small number. And usually I think these are individuals that either have, some kind of, I'm going to say mental, cognitive, they're, I don't know the right word. I should know it. I can't think of it.
They don't know etiquette. Like, it's plain and simple.
It's not that. I think there is physiologic something going on in the brain. And so I just attribute it to that. They're just not like, they don't communicate the way other people communicate. Not neurotypical. I think that might be the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's fine. Like, clearly this person just doesn't have the skill set they need. But like you, I've had a couple recent people that are like, let's get on a call, let's talk. And I'm like, no, I am not getting on a call. I don't have the time to commit to a call. Now, thankfully, Dave joined Clarity.fm. This is not a plug. I'm just saying it was a way for Dave to say, hey, you want to talk to me and I have no relationship to you? Yeah. Here's the link. You can book a call and pay for it. You know, and then once we've built trust, and I've got a lot of people like this, once they've paid for the call, then I'll talk to them 100 times without them having to pay. But it is just that protection between me and the random person trying to get a hold of me.
Yeah. Otherwise it's a floodgate, right? I mean, because anybody can email you. If they've got your phone number, they can call you. Now you can. But
the thing that makes me sad, and I'm glad you're sharing this segment, because I think it's important for people to hear how we interact with these engagements. I don't want it to make people think, well, I'm not going to do social media, or I'm not going to put content out there, or, you know, it is so far and few between, and it pales in comparison to the number of positive contacts we get, the number of positive inbound messages that we get.
Yeah.
Opens far more opportunities than, you know, something like this.
What's the right way then? Let's take a positive out of the negative, right? What is a good way for someone to cold DM you and get you to say, huh, okay, like I'll meet with this person, or this sounds like it's done, you know, the right way, right? There's going to be a lot of different right ways.
Let's see if we can bring Dave in. Dave, what do you think?
All right, I think my Wi-Fi is stable enough now at this point. Can you hear me, guys?
We can.
All right, so I kind of heard a little bit. I know behind the scenes we were talking about this, Scott, and this interaction. A great idea to reach out to someone like Jimmy or Tony or myself. Here's an example. We'll say Tony, because Tony, you know, posting. Well, Jimmy posts a lot of stuff on as well. We'll say Tony today. At a profile, at a look at repost, and you recently mentioned Luna.
All right.
Whatever.
Dave, I'm gonna pull you out just because we're getting every fifth word, but I think we're getting the gist, which is one of the gists I think we were getting there was Dave was saying, reacting to something you honestly shared. So this would be like, hey Tony, saw you had a comment about this. You know, my thoughts are with this. How can I start a conversation about that? Dave, you better now or what?
Yeah, my apologies. I don't know if you're hearing only every fifth word. I mean, I don't know.
Well, right now we hear you. Right now we hear you perfect. It's as soon as you started to share the best part, you cut out. Go ahead, say it again. You mentioned Luna.
Okay, so I follow Tony Maritato. I see a recent post that says something about Luna with risk and private practice versus you know, decreasing risk, and I could, you know, treat patients through Luna, whatever. If I'm trying to message Tony about anything, I say, hey, I see you're a practice owner in Ohio. I saw this recent post. This caught my attention, my eye, because of this reason, or because I have a mobile practice, or because I'm going into a mobile practice, or because I don't like Luna, but I see that you're saying something nice about Luna. So I'm reaching because I'm seeing this thing that you posted, and I either agree or disagree, or we have some common sentiment or whatever. And then first start a conversation. But then you can't just be like, hey, Tony, you know, can I get a free ticket to your Learn Medicare Billing course, and also a free phone call or something like that?
Right. Yeah, this dude jumped he jumped right to, I'm already presenting. He's got my topic lined up. And I was like, my man, you skipped the first date, the first 50 days. You skipped to mid-marriage. I don't know where you're going with this.
Well, the funny thing, you're talking about dating, there's a hilarious commercial. I don't even remember if it's online or on TV. My wife cracks up every time, where it's this woman. It's a car commercial where the car can pull up autonomously. Anyway, this woman's going on a blind date, and the first thing the guy does, he pulls out his phone and he's showing him selfie pictures of him, you know, with all his massive achievements. That I think there are just people out there like since birth. I mean, I know little kids that have that same kind of attitude. It's just the way they present themselves. And I think they live in that world. I had a best friend in high school. He was an amazing guy.
This is art imitating life. This is art imitating life.
Yeah, it makes it sound.
We're streaming on Twitch, and we get this. Hello. This is a comment on Twitch. Sorry for bothering you. I want to offer promotion for your channel viewers, followers, view. The price is lower than this is a person essentially selling me views on Twitch. I mean,
there you go.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, some people do it. Some people just automate it and they're a bot, but some people don't have that part of the brain where they're like, I mean, everything's a curve, right? Everything's a bell curve. And some people are super conservative in terms of like, I'm really nervous about reaching out. And some people, no filter.
So there was a real quick, there was a guy on LinkedIn ads and Facebook ads, and he teaches people how to do business to business sales over LinkedIn. And his ads were a hidden photographer or nearby. And he was walking up to people on the sidewalk with the gold intros that people do on LinkedIn messaging. So he would go up to people walking on the sidewalk and he'd be like, "Hi, do you want to buy my software?"
Right.
And it's just like so hilarious. People are like so caught off guard and they're like running away from, and that's his ads, which is genius because it catches attention. And then he's like, hey, the solution is whatever his coaching or whatever his offer is with like how to sell business to business on LinkedIn.
Yeah, this is brilliant, which is Jamie Schreier and I presented at CSM maybe 2 years ago. And essentially the pitch for that is the rules in relationships, business or social, the rules in relationships are the same online as they are in person. Now, how is a little bit different, but the rules, as in you don't come in hot and ask someone to give you an hour of their time as the first thing that you do. You wouldn't just walk up to someone and be like, I need an hour for you to come sit with me at dinner. It's like, hi, I'm Jimmy. Who are you? Like he skipped a few steps, whether this person has a brain abnormality or they just have no F's to give. I don't know. But if you look at it and you approach this is a big lesson here. That's what Jamie Schreier and our presentation, we'll get Jamie back on. That's what our presentation was about, which is you're building relationships. That's what you're attempting to do. Starting is very hard, right? I mean, walking up to someone and introducing yourself and hoping that person will talk to you and maybe it'll lead somewhere. That's not easy in person, romantically or friendship wise, and that's not easy online if it's business wise. So the rules are the same. How, and as this guy you're talking about on LinkedIn was demonstrating, the how can be worked out differently, but don't be weird.
I will say though, like I've been on a good streak. The last 2 weeks probably been getting a lot of really, really positive inbound. And even from the point of, somebody from, this is kind of interesting, publicly traded company, they reached out to me, their sales and marketing director. Maybe at some point, if we do something with this company, we'll mention it, but, reached out first, as far as I know, first outreach was a telephone call to my clinic. Now, I never, ever get these messages. We are the worst. Like we are the opposite of what Jerry would want us to be Jerry Durham, in regards to like how we handle incoming phone calls. I'll sit there and I'll watch 5 phone calls on my phone ringing. I know there are patients that want to schedule and I won't answer them because I don't want to schedule them. I'm busy enough. Like we are the worst. But anyway, so this guy calls. Normally I'd hit delete before I even heard the rest of the message, but for some reason I heard the whole message, and it is publicly traded company, huge company. I've known this company 20 plus years. And I'm like, oh, and he was so humble and so chill. And hey, I've seen your content and somebody on my team reached out and shared it with me. And you're saying exactly the kind of stuff that we want, to resonate with our company. And then immediately I sent him an email, but like every single time they're very humble, very like normal, whether they're tens of millions of dollars or, a therapist who's just looking to start. It's just, you start with that humility and like, hey, I appreciate what you're doing. These are the things that resonated with me. I understand you're really busy. I would just love to see if there's anything, I can do to connect with you, even for just 5 minutes. Like that goes so much further than the sense of entitlement that some people have to say, hey, I want this. This is what I'm going to get. This is what's going to happen.
There it is. I'd love for comments. I think that's what it felt like anyway, which is this sense of entitlement. I'm like, dude, who are you to be planning my schedule and what I'm going to be doing for you? And oh, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this. Like he said, it's $350 a ticket. Because I said I wanted to be like, oh, let me get some information on before I just completely shut this down. When's this conference and what's the ticket? And then I said, great, what's my cut? And that's when things shifted. What do you mean, what's your cut? I'm like, baby, I'm the Rolling Stones for all you know, right? Like I'm what you're putting on stage.
Amen.
So you're be the guy in the back collecting dollars, and I'm going to dance up for. I'm very sorry. He did explain. He did go to the old tried and true. It's a really good opportunity for exposure for you, which I said I'll do 100 of these for you as long as you go down to the bank and explain to my the person who holds my mortgage how I can pay that with exposure. And also, you're coming to me, which says something to me. But look at that. A publicly traded company doing it the right way, coming in, respect. Look at those words: respectfully, humility. Imagine I walked up to a female and, introduced myself the way this guy Chris did. Probably getting shut down or pepper sprayed. Or the other way, respectfully with humility. It doesn't guarantee anything, but what it guarantees is you're dictating how you're being seen. And these two interactions are good examples of how you want to be seen and how you do not, in my opinion, want to be seen.
All right. Jimmy laid out a perfect segue, walking up to a girl, talking about the hawk to a girl. I asked my wife last night, I was like, hey, do you think we should talk about this on PT Breakfast Club? She was like, no, don't talk about that. But like, how can we not talk about that? This is one of those situations where I always think about this. I'm like, I put out tons of content. At some point, it's just unreasonable that one of those pieces of content doesn't gain traction. So Dave put out a Twitter where he was flexing and he talked about, the importance of being physically fit and treating individuals who value that. Obviously got a ton of engagement relative to the other content. I'm sure people here have probably heard of the Hawk to a Girl, and I made a list. Like, I remember seeing that video. There it is. I remember seeing that video, and I didn't even think. I was like, oh, that's funny. Just kind of like, it's a funny clip.
Yeah.
Well, it took off, went crazy for whatever reason, that clip. And I've seen those videos, right? I don't want to say the website name, but I know the website that goes out there and they ask these women questions and they catch these clips. And usually it's, they're at the bars and it's night and they're inebriated. But like all of a sudden now there's merch. Now, it wasn't always her merch. She came out with a video saying, look, don't buy the other people's merch. My official merch is coming out.
Yeah.
But like, it opened the door for her to sell merch. There's a country Western song about it. There's Etsy shops. There's tons of interviews where we're talking about it, but she's also gone on interviews to talk about it. I saw a tattoo. Somebody got that girl tattooed. I think it was on their leg. It just exploded. So Jimmy, let's start with you and then we'll jump to Dave. If you put out a piece of content that all of a sudden goes viral, like how do you leverage that? How do you take advantage of that sudden notoriety and really turn it into something that isn't just, a one day thing? How do you grow from there?
Well, she doubled down on it, right? Because next thing you know, she was
there. It is.
There's your tattoo. I'll spit on that thing.
Good Lord.
So this shows you what kind of economy that we're in. We're in an attention economy. So how did she capitalize it? I think within 7 days, she was on stage at a country music show and she was singing along with someone. As initially reported, she was not a kindergarten teacher and lost her job. She worked at a spring factory. I learned that because she was doing some sort of high quality, high def interview. And she's the girl for the next 3.5 minutes that she's got left on her 15 minutes of fame. But she's saying this window is small. So she's doubling down on it. I haven't seen much outside of her just making the rounds and being sort of arm candy with the country music star and stuff like that. But she's been signed to an agency. I'm not sure what I don't know what she's going to do next, but.
So think about the amount of inbound this girl got. Like, how did she choose the agency that she signed with? What were the promises and the offers that were made? Dave, what are your
didn't
thoughts?
go with
Like,
Chris Gellert. That's not who she went with. Let me take a wild guess.
By the way, she popped up like a website or a company that's called 16 Minutes, in terms of the 50 minutes of fame. So she understands there might be a limitation here. And I don't know, what else would you do? Like you said, she's doing merch. She said, don't buy from these other places, and her stuff was coming out soon. What else could you do? Well, she could just start a show or a podcast interviewing people. I mean, it's not going to be necessarily like, I don't know if you can monetize it right away. What else would you do?
I was gonna say, like, so she's got she needs to decide what she needs to decide what business she's in, because right now she's sort of pigeonholed. Right, she was the girl who looked a little bit inebriated outside a bar, saying something socially appropriate for outside of a bar, not necessarily socially appropriate for if you were a kindergarten teacher, right? So now she's got to say, am I going to run with this? Am I going to take this ball and this is me and I'm okay with it? There's people getting tattoos of her saying. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, I don't know what rock you're living under. Just go Google Hawk to a Girl and you'll see her 8.5-second clip that skyrocketed her onto this makes no sense to be on this podcast, but it does, where we're an attention economy. So I would say you decide what you want to do. She looks like her audience. She looks like her generation, the people who dug her clip and thought it was funny and shared it with a friend, which is the next level of community, marketing, thought that was funny. Find what value you can bring outside of that 8-second clip to those people. You already have a 10,000 mile head start. Your next decision is the important one.
so this is where Dave's a new dad. I'll let you talk in a minute. This is where I think whether it be the therapists that are watching today, listening today, or our kids, we need to think, this is the future, right? We need to prepare these individuals for the future. We should have a toolbox ready to go so that when this happens, if this happens, we know how to handle it. We know what to do with it. My brain immediately says, okay, this is built around kind of this genre and this community, this tribe. I don't know. I don't do like the dip, the skull and that kind of stuff, but I'm like, instantly I would think this girl goes and, partners with one of these companies and starts leveraging this for spitting tobacco or whatever that is. If we want to keep it super local, I'm like, how could a speech therapist leverage something related to this and bring it into, their world? But immediately I would want to teach my kids literally, okay, if you hit this 15 minutes of fame, these are the questions you need to ask yourself. These are the things you need to have ready so that you can turn this into a real asset that's going to generate wealth into the future. Immediately, I would start a social media channel, which I'm sure she has. I would start a YouTube channel. I was listening to a guy yesterday that said he had 3 million subscribers on one of his channels, started a new channel, didn't upload a single video, but it already got a silver play button, over 100,000 subscribers, just because he told his community he's starting this new channel. Like, she could be building these assets right now and then kind of give her a little room to grow.
I'll say this. When you said, hey, Dave's a new dad, you're going to teach your kids how to, I thought you were going to say, hey, this is also a good lesson. She was in a small town in the middle of nowhere. Like, someone pointed a phone at her and she started talking. Like, the speed and distance that a little bit of video can travel. And this is how you can use it for positive or negative, which is that thing that you're saying in front of a camera with your friends in middle school isn't private anymore. I'm very sorry. We're past the private. We're past that. Oh, make sure you delete this. Is that thing can be around the world before you even get home from that day. So I thought you were going to go with that. That lesson is on the flip side of that coin as well. Be very careful what you do. That's why I started to go back to the first one. That's why I started taking screenshots of what that guy was saying. I was like, this goes away and I start talking about it. I can't prove it. So save the receipts or make sure what receipts are being saved of you. You're aware of that.
Dave, you were going to say something.
No, I want to just bounce off what Tony said. I agree. Like, yeah, YouTube channel, that type of stuff. She could be doing, like I said, interviews, other content. What I find over the years, like the folks that find themselves in the situation, kind kind of like, they got some notoriety, and I don't want this to sound like I'm a hater. Okay. I'm trying not to, but someone who stumbles into this or accidentally becomes, very popular overnight. I feel like sometimes there is either like, maybe like, I don't want to say entitlement, but it's like they just want to be paid by, like, Prime Energy drink and Red Bull and, I don't know, Lululemon or whatever brands out there, be paid to just now show up to places. And there's a disconnect. You were talking about, like, I'm a new dad, and Tony's got 4 boys. Like, there's a disconnect between starting some business project, whatever, it's a YouTube channel, whatever, and it takes time to grind it out, and it takes time to, like, learn and make mistakes and figure things out and have successes and have some failures. And maybe you start a big YouTube channel or one of these Facebook or Instagram channels, and they just, like, sometimes they're just, like, deactivated, they're just, like, deleted or whatever, like, overnight for no reason at all. And then you got to, like, start over, or you got to start something different. Or like when I had Initial, and I learned a lot, but then it was a failure, and I killed it and walked away from it and started other things. It's interesting with these folks who get a ton of notoriety all of a sudden overnight. Like you said, Jimmy, she came from a small town. I think I heard the population was like 800 people or something ridiculously small. And now all of a sudden she's on stage at country music concerts. And also, by the way, her first interview was with Barstool Sports. Apparently, was like, as soon as it happened, they were the first ones to land her, which is pretty clever on their part. But the talent, the person that gets in the spotlight, I think sometimes hasn't gone through some of the challenges to remain there. And then
Sure.
It's not that easy. Now, if she can, like Tony said, if she can capture the lightning in the bottle and keep it going,
Well,
then that's the free market that we live in.
Well, that's the question, right? Which also is, if she started a YouTube channel, what kind of content could she come up with? Right now, she's a one-trick pony, but she's got a chance to now. And this is why I think her move, and I think a lot of people who this happens to, if they're signing with someone, that's a person whispering their ear, they go, listen, this is great, but in 14 more minutes, you're going to be left, and you're going to be the random tattoo on some dude's leg. You're going to be the punchline of I mean, she's the punchline of a joke in 3 years, right? We'll be bringing this back up unless she does something with it. And I mean, but here's the thing, the scale and the long lever arm of the internet, she has an opportunity. So from what I've seen, she's not making, the one decision she made in terms of joining up with others, like, nah, I'm just going to handle this on my own. She went the other way, this 16 minutes. Barstool Sports, what are you going to do? What's your next move? She didn't plan this first move. This is lightning on a cell phone. What are you going to do with your next move? But you can also take lessons from this, which is why we're talking about this, which is, what would you do, or what could you do now? What could you be doing?
So this is where I think our kids have an advantage, because we could start, preparing them. I had a good friend in high school. I think it was high school. Her family won the lotto, right? The lottery down in South Florida. I don't remember how much, but tens of millions. And, you hear those stories. And if you haven't seen these stories, you should go research it. How many people lose all of the money when they win the lottery? It's such a sad story. Like, it ruins so many lives, but it's because these individuals didn't have money before. They get thrust into this world of lots of money, and then they don't know how to handle it. This particular friend of mine with the family, she came from a wealthy family. Mom and dad had built a successful business from the ground up. They understood how to handle the wealth. I didn't see any change in their lifestyle or their behavior or anything. It didn't ruin their life in any way. And so, because she was kind of prepared, the family was prepared, they had trained, and this good fortune comes to them, they could handle it. For us, because we see this happening enough, I would expect that I'm going to train my kids, that anybody who comes to me as, a mentor, mentee, like, these are the lessons that I can share. They're going to have a competitive advantage against somebody else who has never been exposed to this. And so for this girl, I think probably the best thing she could do is try to find somebody else who's already been through this, navigated this successfully, and learn from their experiences. because she doesn't have any previous experience. The other point that I think is interesting here, none of this ever happens as a planned event. You know, like there are plenty of videos where they try to make it, they curate it, they try to make it look funny and make it go viral and do all these things intentionally. That stuff never pulls off. It's these random Charlie bit my finger. It's these real moments, you know, that happen, that get captured, that go viral. So you're really planning for something that probably is never going to happen in a million years. But if it does, you want to be ready to leverage that event.
Do you remember when someone famous actually tried to prove what you're just talking about, Tony? Do you remember when it was a late night host tried to fake a video going viral and it worked? And then he was there for the big reveal?
No.
So this was Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
There was a video that went viral. It was a girl doing a handstand. Her friend opens the door.
That was fake.
She falls over, kicks the candles over in the bottom left there, and the house sets on fire. What you saw, or what you didn't see later, was Jimmy Kimmel was essentially behind this, and the way he sort of proved it was they shot the video all together. So Jimmy Kimmel was there when the video was being shot because it was his behind the scenes, right? They made it look. And then when they showed an alternate extended version of the video, and out comes Jimmy wearing the same outfit. And he's saying like this was a setup. But also they had a running start, but they looked at the formula. It's got to look natural. People don't like the setup. When we start smelling that setup, and we are getting smarter and smarter and more savvy every day. So when there's a lesson in this too, which is when your ad or your communication starts to sound like everybody else, it blends in like wallpaper. And that is quite literally the opposite. So when people come to me and they go, what formulas are working? I go, I don't know. I sort of don't care what formulas are working now. I want to understand what the audience has not been exposed to, because that's signal versus noise. Noise is everything out there in the world. Signal is the message, right? You've all been on the walkie-talkie as a kid, and you're sitting there. You're trying to make sure your friend can hear what you're saying outside of the static. And I think this Hawk Tuah girl was the thing, right?
Yeah. Going back to Scott's comment, I don't know, but if she did start a YouTube channel or something like that, I think that would be her opportunity to interview and talk to other people that have gone viral. Like go out and find those viral hits, those one-hit wonders, and just, you know, kind of talk to them about the experience and share it. And that would be my first thought for something like that.
All right, let's play this game. She's going to be on this podcast, and she's going to sit, and she's sitting there. She's like, I don't know what to do. I would tell her to tell me about you. Tell me about you. Because I don't know what I'm working with. All I know right now is you got a hot 8 seconds of the thing that came out of your mouth. Now you got the world looking at you. Take a beat. Tell me about you. What maybe she's a classically trained cellist. I don't know. But we have to yes and this with something. She can't just run around repeating the same phrase. I mean, the easy version would be like she goes to an adult website, and that's a way to cash in on this. Or the way is OnlyFans, right? Okay. Which, hang on, we have to Google because that could have happened in the overnight. But it starts with the person, right? She's a lot like a wooden roller coaster. Wait a minute, see where I'm going. The wooden roller coaster's dragged up there with a chain and lets it go. Because of physics, it can never be as high again, right? Unless other energy is brought into it. So my question is, what else can you add to this? Because right now you're just on the downslope of that roller coaster. You're riding this out. Unless we add something to it. So I would start with her. I don't know anything about her outside that she had an 8-minute viral moment.
Yeah. My last question for Jimmy before we hit Dave's topic. You were in radio. We know there are one-hit wonders on radio. You hit that one song.
Yep.
You know, I always thought personally, and this is just within my nature, if I had one big hit, if I could put $10 million in the bank, I think I'd be happy. I think I'd be good. Yeah. I'd be done. I wouldn't try to like capture that, you know, rush again. And
well, yeah, but what would you do? You'd go back to doing you, right? You'd put $10 million in the bank and you'd probably just go back to doing you, right? You wouldn't just pack it up, would you? I mean, some of them do.
I don't know.
But
I really don't.
I mean, one of the biggest one-hit wonder, I'll take some heat for this, is I went to a Survivor concert and they opened with Eye of the Tiger and closed with Eye of the Tiger, which is an aggressive move. But it just showed me they got it. Like, you came here for this. Is there I don't know. Is there another song? Probably. They had a concert. But I think, you know who I was listening to the other day? Do you know the story behind Hootie and the Blowfish? And I didn't know this. No. The reason Hootie and the Blowfish became who we know Hootie and the Blowfish was David Letterman happened to be driving in his car one day and heard Hootie and the Blowfish song on a random radio station and said, I want them on my show tomorrow. And he had them back like 10 times. And it shows you, like, the lesson there is Hootie and the Blowfish is a good band, right? Jam out, right? In 1997. There's lots of bands that are probably better than them. And I know it's music, it's subjective, but there's lots of bands that probably could have had more songs. They just didn't have the reach. So if a different band had been put on Letterman, they could have been even bigger. There's a lot of bands that are on Letterman that we've never heard from again, right? So now you have a conundrum. We have these little things. 2008, Steve Jobs introduced this smartphone, and we got the interwebs, those things combined. Now you have access to the world. The problem is everybody has access to
noisy.
The world. So it's noisy. It's noisy. It's becoming noisier. It's getting noisier tomorrow. I say, if I'm gonna wrap this segment up with a bow, it's she's got her moment. I need to know more about her now to see if there's anything else in the tank. Or, hey, Dar, I mean, good for you. Ride this off into the sunset. I'm not hating on her. Good on you. I'm jealous.
Yeah. Dave, what's on your mind?
All right, on my mind, spoke with, I want to make sure I get the name correct, Scott Gardner. Scott Gardner spoke with him yesterday. A physical therapist practice owner. I forget where he's located. He's got 4 clinics. Maryland. Thank you. Long story short, he is starting or has started United Physical Therapy Association. So this is like a there's like, what is it like when with like a spite? Like, I don't know if you guys saw Jimmy, you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm? Have you ever? No,
I didn't watch Curb. No.
In the show, there's a place called Latte Larry, Mocha Joe. There's a coffee shop called Mocha Joe. Larry David has all these issues with it. The scones are too dry. The coffee's not hot enough. The tables wobble, all that. Right next door, he opens up a place called Latte Larry's. It's a spite store. He opens up a store to spite Mocha Joe's, a coffee shop next to a coffee shop. I'm joking, but this is what Scott is doing. He's starting a new association in physical therapy, specifically around physical therapist practices, reimbursement. And one of his things, actually, I can get on board with, and I can agree, because I did a video on it recently about equal pay and the physical therapy contracts, the reimbursement contracts between hospital satellite offices for physical therapy versus private practices. We've gone through it a bunch of times. They get paid, 2.5 to 3x or more per unit and per visit. And so Scott found a whole bunch of information, which Jimmy said was public. I didn't realize, a nonprofit like APTA, all their information, the 990 forms, all this stuff is public. And Scott was saying that, he is dissatisfied with the APTA executives and leadership and the people who work at the APTA. And specifically, or there's a bunch of specifics, but part of it is they have really big salaries where they work. They have matching 401k. They have an increase of a cost of living increase like every year as like an executive or an SVP or whatever their roles are. They have access to a big gym. They have access to all this stuff in terms of compensation and benefits and all that. And Scott was like, that doesn't sound like you or I, or doesn't sound like most practice owners have access to that across the country, right? And I'm like, well, I didn't really go into my whole thing with my business model, but it's like, yeah, I understand what you mean. And, practice owners are being reimbursed the same dollar amount as they did 15 years ago or whatever. So Scott is starting United Physical Therapy Association. He told me he's got like 12 people already on a board. They're going to ramp up and open up a website in August, which is why, Jimmy wanted to have them on as soon as possible. And I asked him to do an interview on my show, and Scott was not interested right now, but maybe next month. Before we get into all that, like, you know, I don't know if there's room for another association. If we're all going to these legislators and we're trying to do just lobbying or meeting them. He gave the example of, like, you know, APTA goes into a state representative's room to say hello and pitch them an idea or lobby or whatever. And then the APTA leaves, and then in walks him and United Physical Therapy Association. So he does acknowledge that the association, the whole profession of physical therapy needs to have one voice. So he did say that he and United and APTA would have to work together in some form or fashion. Before we get into deep, what are your just initial thoughts or takeaways? I know Jimmy's got some sentiments being in the Facebook group. Either Jimmy or Tony, on what you guys think of this.
Tony, I'll let you go first.
I don't know. I'm kind of neutral. I'm indifferent. You know, every organization is going to have its pros and cons. When you first started talking about this, I was looking online because I thought it was a different organization. I'm looking at Alliance for Physical Therapy, Quality and Innovation. APTA. I don't know if these are the guys that I remember hearing about that were going to be competitive to the APTA or something. And then I know there are Facebook groups out there where they're talking about starting like a physical therapy union. I don't know. I mean, if there's demand in the market, if the consumer, in this case, physical therapists, are looking for this kind of thing, fine. Somebody can do it better. Somebody always can do it better. I don't know. Jimmy, what are you thinking?
The market decides. So yeah, I looked at this. I was like, this is interesting. I asked questions. Here's what I looked at this as. There's a bunch of people who aren't happy with what APTA is or is not doing. And I understand that. There is no perfection. So they're deciding to start their own. When they were starting on the things that they're going to be able to provides an outcome. We are going to lower this or improve this or bring this or reduce that. I then ask how. And then I was told, well, we're going to share that later. So I pushed and said, well, do you have any experience doing these things? And I told I would get that information later. So and I'm not knocking it. Like, if you want to start another association, do it. This feels a lot like when the 11th grader is running for president in high school and says, I'm going to change the menu in the cafeteria. And they go, do you have any experience doing that? And they say, no, but we know the food sucks. Okay, I agree with you that the food sucks, but I don't know if you're the person. I think I should be talking to the CFO or the person who does the budgeting for the menu. So, you know, I don't know if these people can build a better mousetrap. That's why I joined the Facebook group. I was eager to see what they were doing. I didn't see a whole lot of plans, but maybe they're coming and maybe August. For a while there, it was July 4th was going to be the big launch. Now it looks like August.
Yeah. So Tony mentioned Alliance for Physical Therapy, Quality and Innovation. So I asked him about that group as well. Apparently that group is kind of affiliated with APTA and the Alliance for Physical Therapy, Quality and Innovation. So APTQI is basically the bigger chains, the bigger groups, big practice owners. So the ones that are basically like 100 locations or more, they pay like $75,000 a year as like a membership fee. So obviously you got to be like a fairly big dog to be like, oh yeah, like I'll pay 75 grand to be part of this. It's like, you know, strength in numbers kind of thing. So that's part of kind of affiliated with APTA. So they're not trying to do their own thing. They're trying to, you know, do strength in numbers. I think with APTA, I do think it would be kind of a big challenge here for Scott and United Physical Therapy Association. I'm kind of curious to see how it'll go. The one thing he did mention about the whole equal pay thing. So again, we've harped on it a bunch. Hospital office or hospital can charge, you know, 4 units for Medicare Part B visit, and they'll make $300, and then a private practice makes $100 or $109 or whatever. That's specifically, he said. And Scott, if you're listening or watching on the replay, whatever, if I get this wrong, you know, don't quote me, don't quote Scott on this, but I think he said something like equal pay was, it had passed the Senate and then it got killed or something before, I guess, moving to the next level. So that is something that someone, I didn't even ask him because we had a brief phone call, I didn't even ask him like who was pushing that. Was that APTA or like who was behind all that, the equal pay thing? But at least there's some momentum of that. I mean, because Tony, like if that were to happen, right? If you were getting 300 a visit or 275 a visit compared to 100, I mean, just overnight, it could really change a practice. I think it really could. It could kind of include a cost of living increase over time, where these units, the reimbursement has not changed over time for 15 or more years. That's a whole other conversation as to if practice owners will actually do something great or meaningful with the money to reinvest in their practice or pay their therapist more or whatever. That's a whole other conversation. But I'm kind of curious to see where this goes. And I think Scott wanted to hold off on the media and the interviews and all that until August. So whenever he's ready, I definitely want to have him on my show, or, you know, maybe it's up to you guys, maybe here or some other conversation with him, and we can kind of ask him these questions directly and kind of hear what type of momentum they have. And I think something reasonable also is that the membership cost, he was saying, was going to be like $150 per year, which I think sounds cheaper than the APTA. I think APTA was $200 or $300.
So the Facebook group wound up being what happens, right? When a bunch of people get together and they're mad about something. So one woman had thrown out an idea. Why doesn't APTA do a nationwide media campaign showing the value of physical therapy? Because I'm a private practitioner. And I asked, what do you think a nationwide multimedia campaign might cost? And she said, I have no idea. And I said, millions of dollars. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying, okay, hey, physical therapist, we have a goal. Everybody should know how great we are. But here we are, everybody not knowing how great we are. What is the distance cost? Millions of dollars. So if you start your new association and you're charging $150 per member, how are we going to get to the multimedia campaign? Because that one person is now saying, I want ice cream on the menu in the high school cafeteria. Make that happen. So I'm agreeing with you. I think everybody should know the value of that. But the question is, what business is APTA in? How many different fires can you expect one organization to put out for $500 a year? Oh my gosh, membership's so expensive. $500. What are you expecting with your $500? So that's the question. The other thing is, and I'm not a regulatory expert, so I will gladly reach out to APTA since I'm a member and bring one, because I've had APTA regulatory and advocacy experts on my podcast. I think they had a smoking gun with the publicly available financials for a 501c3 organization, which APTA is, which how much they were spending of all the money they had to lobbying. There are rules. There are laws. This is why those things called PACs exist, why those people at APTA CSM walk around in the red coats to raise money. As far as I know, again, don't quote me verbatim, but your membership dollars cannot legally be used to advocate. It can't be done. You have to give if you want to pay your membership, it's $500. Now you're an APTA member, you get all the rights and responsibilities therein. If you want to say, oh, I want lobbying dollars, you got to break out your wallet again. It needs to be separate. This is, like it or not, that's just the laws of the United States. So I think that they're on the right. They're angry, right? Which is good. I'm angry for a lot of the same reasons, and they want to create their own situation. Great. But I don't know if I don't. Here's the 12 people on their board. Do any of them have any experience doing that? I don't know the answer to that. I know Scott was APTA vice president for a couple months, and then he left to start this. As far as I know, that was his only actual association experience. I might be wrong, though. That's all I know.
Yeah, Jimmy's using the words experience. I'm going to use the word competitive advantage. Like, this is one of those things where if I had a senator in my back pocket that I knew he was going to do anything I told him to do because I had a video of him doing something inappropriate, then I would go and I would start an organization like this, right? If I had some, if I had some sort of advantage that I knew, you know, I was going to beat out the bigger players because of this. Okay. And maybe I watched too many Netflix, you know, series like House of Cards and things like that. But that's the reality. I mean, politics is a dirty business. I don't think that shocks anybody. You know, I would need to know that there is something there, or, and I'm not saying any of the people that we've talked about on the show is doing this, but, or I recently shared a post where I'm saying, look, are you selling a solution to the perceived problem or the actual problem? You know, if I just wanted to start an organization because I knew that a bunch of people were mad about something and they were going to throw money at me because they thought that I had a solution, am I selling into that anger and fear and anxiety and stuff and just monetizing that, giving them a fake solution that's never going to go anywhere? Or am I really trying to sell a solution? I think the only solution is you have to have a competitive advantage. If it's politics, you have to know that you're going to, you know, turn something and make somebody vote the way you want them to vote. Otherwise, you're just wasting money.
And that's full circle, right? Which is, and I'm not in the political game, but it's a relationship business. You can be angry about it. You can try to change the system here in America, but it's not easy because it's so large. The system does not want to be changed. The people in the political system are happy with the current system because they have their various positions. But this is how it is. If you don't like it, start another association. But I would caution people, understand what you're doing. When you're saying, I'm not going to play your game, I'm going to take my ball, I'm going to go home. Understand that by taking your ball and going home, there's a lot of work to be done. Do you have the time, effort, skill set, competitive advantage to do those things? Maybe you did, because at one point there was no APTA. It did not exist. And then it did. Does it solve all of your problems? If you don't like what the APTA is doing, don't join them. Don't do it. But
well, I guess that's why we're stuck with the two presidential candidates that
right.
we're stuck with, right? Because if you introduce a third, you split the vote on one of the two sides, and then the other guy wins.
Right.
It's kind of what we're looking at in this situation. And so, yeah, I mean, I think this game plays out 1,000 times over history. We've seen it enough times. We just need to learn from that history.
Yeah, I thought it was, and I could have predicted it, but when I started asking questions, people got angry at me and literally started saying to me, like, well, then you're just being contrarian. And then Scott even fired back. He goes, somebody on your website is on the board of directors at APTA. I go, yeah, she was my professor 8 years ago. I put her on the website 8 years ago because she helped me launch my podcast. So I'm not, maybe the conspiracy is I'm a plant. Maybe Jimmy's a plant.
Oh.
That was his contort, because I started asking questions like, listen, you should be at these. The questions I was asking in my mind is what I would be asking if it was a room full of people and I was saying, okay, maybe this is a good idea, but how are we going to do that? So it was sort of received because I was being annoying asking these questions. Like, what do you think that costs? Or how would you do that? Do any of you have any experience walking into a legislator's office and advocating, right? Anybody? Maybe they do. But if you do, you know how long and hard that process is. It does not happen overnight. Again, I'm not here to say the APTA is perfect. It is not. I don't think people at the APTA think the APTA is perfect. I think it's a solution to an actual problem that they're trying to solve.
For parting shots, I think I would say I'm kind of curious to follow this, because there's pros and cons to this, but if the one main mission statement for him, if it is truly equal pay between private practices and the hospital outpatient clinics, I think he could get some money. I think he could get some practice owners, all the clinic directors. He even included on the phone call with me, which we don't have time to go into, but he mentioned the PAs and the PT and all that. So there's a few things on the whole agenda, but I could see how, like you just said it, Jimmy, like the APTA is really big. They're trying to service and cover the entire country and every possible challenge and issue or roadblock or whatever. And there's a lot with healthcare and physical therapy and with schools and student loan debt and trying to get more therapists, more students into physical therapy school or PTA school or whatever. There's a lot of challenges with an existing association. And sometimes that's good, and then sometimes that's bad. But I would just say my parting shot would be, I'm going to keep an eye on this. I could see how maybe there's room for a sniper organization. A sniper meaning like his main focus is this one thing with equal pay, which resonates with a ton of people, because when I episode about the $300 versus $100 per visit, that guy in a short period of time, maybe it helped Tony was on the episode. Nonetheless, that's my parting shot, is maybe there's room for a specific mini association that has a very specific mission, and maybe or gobble it up by the 8 later. But if it is successful, I think it could be great for private practice.
Gosh, if only there was some sort of subset of the APTA that just focused on private practitioners. Maybe we would call it the private practice section of the APTA. I mean, I see a lot of energy. I mean, what I don't want is them to get I want them to get disenfranchised. I agree with a lot of things you dislike. I'm just wondering if you have the skill set and if you can't beat them, join them. I don't know. There is the private practice section, who a lot of people there are very interested in all the things you're talking about. But
True.
Hey, listen, if you're going to start your own org, start your own org. Tony, what's your parting shot?
I think we just gotta, hope for the best, plan for the worst, but look at these opportunities that something you produce is going to go viral. Plan for that. Have an action plan in place so that okay, if I post this next video, if I post this next Facebook, whatever, Twitter, and it does take off, how am I going to leverage this? How am I going to use this to my advantage and turn this into a self-sustaining business? Yep.
And I'll wrap it up by saying this whole thing, everything we talked about today, it's about relationships. Decide what you're going to put, how and what you're going to put out into the world in terms of yourself, and then understand that the internet has the longest undefeated memory in the world. It's undefeated, and it's forever. So putting out there, be careful what you put out there, because it's going to be there. It's going to represent you, because people can clip off the beginning and the end and just take that 8-second clip, and then that's you forever. This woman is going to have grandkids. Now, maybe they're driving Bentleys, but she's going to have grandkids one day. My grandmother didn't have an option. If she did something crazy, her grandson, little Jimmy McKay, hearing about it 30, 40, 60 years later. I don't know, man. Hey, but to each their own, and that's her thing. So that's my parting shot, is understand what you're putting out into the world, because the world's based on relationships. Gentlemen, good talk today.